this session today, we are going to talk about some very interesting concepts about interview skills. Let me draw a parallel between a job interview and a game of cricket. You might find it little interesting. How can a job interview have a comparison with a game of cricket? Okay, let's understand that now. In a game of cricket, there is a batsman and there is a bowler. Similarly, in the job interview, there is a candidate and there is an interviewer who asks questions. In the game of cricket, the bowler bowls at the batsman. In the job interview, the interviewer asks questions to the candidate. In the job interview, the interviewer or the recruiter asks a variety of questions. In the game of cricket, the bowler sends or throws different kinds of balls. It can be short pitch ball, it can be a bouncer, it can be full toss, and so on. So similarly, in the job interview, the interviewer asks different kinds of questions. Sometimes it's an easy question, sometimes it's a difficult question, sometimes it's a tricky question, sometimes it's a confusing question, and so on. So you can see some similarities between the game of cricket and job interviews now. So every question is like a ball that a bowler sends out in the game of cricket. So remember, a job interview is like a limited overs game of cricket. It's not a test match. So you have 50 overs to play. So you only can bowl certain number of balls and you can ask only a certain number of questions. Similarly, as a batsman, you are going to face a certain number of balls, or you're going to face an approximate number of balls in a game of cricket in your innings. So in that 50 overs game, the batsman has to score the required runs. So similarly, in that defined time period, when the interview is typically about 20 to 30 minutes, within that time frame, you have to answer the questions. But what is the most important thing? The most important thing is to answer the questions in a manner that you can impress the interviewer. Like in a game of cricket, it's not enough to stay there for 50 overs, but also you need to score runs. That's important. So you need to score the required number of runs. Otherwise, just being there, not getting out is not good enough. So similarly, going to the interview and just facing questions is not good enough unless you make the desired impression on the interviewer. That's the most important thing. So when a bowler is bowling at the batsman, he is trying to test the batsman by bowling different kinds of balls, maybe sometimes a bouncer, sometimes a full toss, sometimes a short pitch delivery, and so on. The idea is to test the batsman and get a good measure of the batsman. Similarly, the interviewer is asking you different types of questions to test you, to test your confidence, to test your knowledge, to test your techniques, to test your courage, to test your presence of mind, to test whether you are thinking or just mindlessly answering. In a game of cricket, you must be a good thinker. You need to judge the merit of each ball and then play according to the merit of the ball. You know, sometimes you have to score a sixer, maybe a four. Sometimes you just play a ball defensively and don't score any run. That's your strategy. You look at the merit of each ball and then you play accordingly. Similarly, in the interview, you will have to look at each question and then answer it in such a manner that it tells something about yourself. So when you're playing a ball for a sixer, or you're playing it defensively, or you are just taking a single, this shows your technique, your knowledge of the game, your ability to judge the ball, and your ability to judge the bowler, and then accordingly you are playing. So similarly, when you answer a question, it actually tells something about the technique that you have, the domain knowledge that you have, the knowledge of the subject matter, whether are you a thinker or you are a mindless performer, are you a collaborator, are you a problem solver? These are different techniques, attributes that the interviewer is trying to test. So the most important thing about a game of cricket for a batsman is to score ample number of runs without getting out and make his or her team win. Similarly, in the interview, it's important to answer all the questions according to the merit of the question and make the desired impression on the interviewer or on the recruiter or the hiring manager so that you can get the job. So that's what is important. So every question is important. Like every ball is important in a game of cricket, and it's more important in a game of limited overs cricket. So how do you answer the question tells something about yourself. It tells about the technique that you know. It tells about your ability to express. It tells about your problem solving ability. It tells about your thinking ability, and so on. So the most important thing about the candidate in the interview is to use every question to his or her benefit, to his or her advantage. Use every question to score a point about yourself. Like the batsman tries to use every ball to score a run, maybe a 4 or a 6er. Similarly, your objective is to use every question to make a point about yourself, to make a statement about yourself. Otherwise, the ball goes waste. Now, let's look at another example. I'm going to now give you an example of a real life scenario about a candidate going for a job interview. So there was a job interview. They were recruiting teachers in a school. And there were 3 candidates. The first candidate walked into the interview, walked into the room where the interview was taking place. The interview panel asked him the question. They asked, "What do you do?" This candidate replied, "Well, sir, I'm a teacher." Okay. The next candidate walked in. They asked him the same question. "What do you do?" He answered. He said, "Well, I teach 40 handicapped children." All right. The third candidate walked in. They each one of them answered this question differently.
Sir, your voice is not coming.
Now, please tell me, maybe you can use the chat option and tell me whose answer was correct.
Sir, your voice is not coming, sir.
Sir, your voice is not coming, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. I think there was some technical disruption, but good that you can hear me now.
Sir, can you please repeat, sir?
Okay, so let me repeat. So let me share with you an example of a real life scenario where there was an interview going on for the position of a teacher. And there were 3 candidates. The first candidate walked in and the interviewer asked him, "What do you do?" The candidate replied, "Sir, I am a teacher." All right. The second candidate walked in. The interviewer asked him the same question. "What do you do?" He said, "I teach 40 handicapped children." Okay. Then comes the third candidate. The interviewer asked her, "What do you do?" She replied like this. She said, "Sir, I am
Sir, your voice is not
Sir,
structured.
your voice is breaking, sir. Your voice is not audible.
Sir, do
Three
repeat from
candidates answered the question differently. They answered the same question differently.
Sir, your voice is
Tell
not
me.
audible.
Sir, your voice is not audible to anyone, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I think you are network issue. So third
Okay.
candidate what he spoke.
Only first candidate we have listened, second little bit, and third totally not listened.
Okay. Let me just. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
We could not able to hear the third person's answer, sir.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me see if I can change my networks. Can anyone confirm if you can hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Audio
Yes, sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now clear.
Okay. Okay. So let me start once again from the beginning. Let me share with you.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Please, all of you can go on mute, or maybe I will mute all of you. There's going to be some disruption because of this wall clock that you can hear now. All right, so let's look at a real life example now. I'm sharing with you an example of a job interview where there were 3 candidates. The job interview was for the position of a teacher. And the first candidate walked into the room. The interviewer asked him, "What do you do?" The candidate replied, "Sir, I'm a teacher." The second candidate walked in. The interviewer asked him, "What do you do?" He said, "I teach 40 handicapped children." Then came the third candidate. The interviewer asked her the same question, "What do you do?" The candidate replied, "Sir, I am responsible for the physical and mental development of 40 handicapped children." Same job, same interviewer, 3 candidates. 3 of them responded differently. Each one answered the question differently. So can you tell me, can you use the chat window and tell me whose answer was correct?
The third
Third candidate. The third candidate.
So was the second candidate wrong?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Did the first candidate answer the question incorrectly?
The third person's
No, sir.
sounds like he is responsible person.
So each of them answered the question correctly.
So
Yes, sir.
with the
Everybody
answer, the
answered
third
correctly,
person,
but the third person had given the more informative answer.
Absolutely. So everybody answered the question correctly. But who do you think would have got the job?
Third person, sir.
Third
The
person.
third candidate.
Yes, sir.
And why?
Because she was really creative with her answers.
His
She
answer
was
was
very creative
appreciable.
with the answer. So if we go back to the cricket example, probably she used the question to score a sixer, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
The
sir.
other 2 candidates just played the ball either defensively or scored a single. They did not get out, but they did not impress. the interviewer. So my dear friends, going for a job interview is not about answering the questions correctly. It's not just about that. It is about making a statement about yourself. It's not about answering each question correctly. It is about answering each question in a manner which makes a statement about yourself, which tells something about yourself, which tells about your strength, which tells about your capability, which tells about your ability, which tells about the value that you can bring to their organization. So going for a job interview and answering questions is not about answering questions correctly. It's about answering questions in a manner that can impress the interviewer, that can make a statement about yourself. Very similarly, going to the game of cricket as a batsman is not just about standing there and playing every ball defensively or scoring a single. That might work in a test match. But at a limited overs game where you have limited number of balls to face, you have to score runs fluently and demonstrate that you have the right technique, right knowledge of batting, you can score fluently, you can play defensively when required, you can attack, you can make your team win. You have that ability. That's important. In a game of cricket, the bowler becomes very unhappy if you hit the bowler for sixers and fours. But in a job interview, the bowler is happy if you are scoring sixers and fours, if you're making a statement about yourself, if you're scoring a point about yourself, because he or she feels that he or she is about to get the right candidate, the candidate they're looking for, right? So now, do you understand the most important concept about facing job interviews? Can you tell me a yes or a no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you share with me on the chat window some
Yes.
key learnings from what I shared with you so far?
Yes, yes.
Just use the chat window to share a few learnings that you had. So what did you learn? Just share some one or two key learnings. Need to be different from others, okay? It's not just about answering, but it's about scoring a point about yourself. Express yourself with clarity. As you time the ball very well so that it can cleanly goes to the fence. Be smart and need to be different from the rest of others. Don't be nervous. Tell the key point. Yeah, as a batsman, if you're nervous, the bowler will attack you more. So as a candidate, if you're nervous, it's not going to help your cause. You should show them that you are responsible. Very good. Give logical answers. Fantastic. Great. So I have seen many students whom I have mentored in the past. Some of them have come to me and then said, "Sir, I said everything correctly, but I still did not get a job." Well, it's not about saying everything correctly. Of course, you have to say everything correctly, but in a manner which will score a point about yourself, which will make a statement about yourself. Every answer that you give, every sentence that you speak, every word that you use should make an impression, should make a statement about yourself. Every answer should talk about your strength, your capability, your knowledge, your experience, your ability to collaborate, think, judge, decide, solve problems, your confidence, and so on. Wonderful. Now the question is, how do we make a point about ourselves? How do you make a point about yourself in the interview? It requires preparation. What does the batsman do before going to the game of cricket?
Practice.
Batsmen practice, isn't it? They do net practice, right? Even Sachin Tendulkar, the highest run scorer, or the best batsman in the world, goes to practice. Before he goes to a match, he goes to a practice session. So similarly, before you go for a job interview, practice, prepare, rehearse, have the dry run. That's important. Never ever go to a job interview without preparation. If you do that, if you're lucky, you might get a job. But most likely there's a possibility that you'll be disappointed. So when the batsman goes to the game of cricket, if he doesn't practice enough, if he's lucky, he might score runs, but otherwise he might just get out cheaply. So it's important that you practice. That net practice is important. List down all possible questions that the interviewers may ask you. All possible questions. Prepare your response, but your response should not be scripted. It should not be like you're reading from a piece of paper. Your response should be natural, but you should have practiced that. You should have rehearsed that. You should have, like the batsman does it in a net practice. You should have tried answering that question again and again. Maybe in front of a mirror. Maybe you should have practiced that with a friend, where you would have practiced a mock interview. Like a net practice is like a mock practice. It's a mock scenario where the bowler is bowling at you, but it's not a real game. Similarly, you need to do that, the mock interviews or the net practice in the form of standing in front of a mirror and answering, looking at your facial expression, your body language, the smile that you wear on your face, and so on. So practice is very important. So list down the probable questions and also list down your response. Practice your response. Keep it in mind that your answer should not sound scripted. It should not sound like a written note that you were reading from, right? So that's important. Keep that in mind.